Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all are well. Okay, so let's recap the Cold War. You got the DO line, you've got NORAD, you've got DP. Are you confused? Well, perhaps DJ Flos can make it better understood. I think it's Cold War rap time. It is odd that after World War II was barely a few months old, Stalin, Churchill, Truman went into a war that was cold. In 1946, Churchill said one thing's for certain: Europe's divided by an iron curtain. It all became real for us when we were at home playing bingo, when that Russian dude exposed that spy ring. His name, Igor Guzenko. In the newly created United Nations, Canada soon improved its relations. Against the Russian missiles we helped to detect, early warning systems that would protect, nuclear bombs we hoped to deflect by data information that we would collect. So a very good friend of mine worked up north on the DO line. He froze his butt off, and that was sad, working for North American Air Defense. Hey, that's NORAD. Immigration increased huge as thousands of people became refugees. When they came to Canada, they were known as DPs. What to do with Germany? Would the West let them suffer and die? No way! We learned a thing about the Treaty of Versailles. America tried to help rebuild war-torn nations any way they can. The U.S. loaned billions of dollars, so on her own 2 feet, Germany could stand. This was known as the Marshall Plan. But Stalin said no. He didn't trust the West to protect from being attacked. He created little communist buffer states, and they're called the Warsaw Pact. East-West tension in Europe was high like a hot potato. To counter the Warsaw Pact, the West formed NATO. NATO? What's worse is the Cold War didn't bring any calm, with hot wars flaring up in Korea and Vietnam. In 1956, East-West relations were as cold as ISIS. Soviet-backed Egypt took control of their canal that led to the Suez Crisis. When tension between France, England, and Egypt began to fester, the United Nations had a solution from a Canadian named Lester. Lester B. Pearson saw a way out when things just couldn't get any bleaker. He proposed the establishment of the Peacekeeper. When he addressed the United Nations, he looked Britain in the eye and said there was no reason that anyone had to die, and people listened and backed off, all because of a Canadian guy who talked sense and peace in a suit and bow tie. Over the crisis, all Canadians should have pride in their eyes. Because of his wisdom, our own Mr. Pearson won the Nobel Peace Prize. But it wasn't all bad between these communist and capitalist fights. The United Nations declared that all people were entitled to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But the Iron Curtain was not the last wall to be done. West Berlin was surrounded in 1961. They flew in supplies, went to promote West Berlin's optimism. The airlift went a long way to stop the spread of communism. But the Cuban Missile Crisis, we almost had World War III thanks to a quick-thinking president, John F. Kennedy. Blockading Cuba forced the Russians to back down. It made Nikita Khrushchev look like a clown. But the Cold War lasted for another 40 years. It's hard to remember, but in 1989 they broke down that wall in the rainy, cold November. So ladies and gentlemen, sorry. Oh, that's better. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed this Cold War video. And just to remember, Cold War really isn't very far away. There are a lot of things that are still around. In fact, it's nice to say some of our colleagues, some of your great teachers at Waterdown, were products of the Cold War. They grew up on the other side of the Iron Curtain. One science teacher and one math teacher, Miss B and Miss O, tremendous teachers they are, and great people. They grew up in that culture. They were oppressed by the Soviet Union. They were forced to believe in the communist system. And now we're all together like a happy Waterdown family that we are.